I'm back to, you guessed it, talk more shit about designer jewelry that I don't think is worth your money. In the last episode, we talked about Cartier's Love Bracelet, a piece of jewelry that seems to imply that you are the property of another person. And today, we're going to be talking about a piece of jewelry that seems to imply that you are the property of Tiffany Company. Yes, that's right, we are talking about Tiffany's Return to Tiffany collection. I almost didn't make this video because I have very strong and not very generous opinions about modern Tiffany versus the early days of Tiffany Company. I have a deep love for the design work of Louis Comfort Tiffany, and I have no love for the bland and mass-produced stuff that Tiffany is churning out today. I also happen to have been in the 9th grade in 2001 when this collection was becoming wildly popular, so I will forever associate it with Abercrombie & Fitch shirts and awkwardly flat-ironed hair. The Return to Tiffany collection can be traced back to the 1960s, although not in the form that you're familiar with. In 1966, Tiffany produced a series of keychains. Each keychain had a tag engraved with the words, "Please return to Tiffany & Company, New York," along with the serial number. The idea was that if you lost your keys, some kind soul would return them to Tiffany's flagship store, who would then return them to you. It wasn't until 1980 that the first Return to Tiffany necklace was made. Although, unlike the sterling silver version that most people are familiar with, the original necklace was made in gold. In 1997, Tiffany & Company released the first silver Return to Tiffany necklace, and this is the collection that became so wildly popular. Looking at the most popular silver version of this necklace, the price doesn't quite compare to the Van Cleef and Cartier pieces we've talked about. It is silver, after all. But if we have a look at the gold version of this necklace, well, if you have $13,000 to spend on a piece of jewelry and you're spending it on this necklace, I think we need to organize an intervention. That is a batshit insane price to pay for a simple chain with a heart-shaped pendant on it. But of course, I can't just bitch. I have to show you pieces that I think are way cooler and worth spending your money on. There are two forms of historical jewelry that I think Tiffany & Company was referencing when they designed the Return to Tiffany collection. The first of these is watch chains. This style of watch chain with a large toggle became incredibly popular during the late 1800s. Almost immediately, women started wearing them as necklaces as well as pocket watch chains. As the name suggests, you would attach it to your pocket watch, which would then help anchor it to your clothing. The other piece of jewelry that I think Tiffany was inspired by when creating this collection is known as a book chain. These book chain necklaces were incredibly popular during the late 1800s. The name alludes to the shape of the individual links, which look like a book laid flat. These were fairly chunky, and often they came with a small connector that you could use to turn your necklace into a Y-shaped necklace to hold a pendant. Book chains were most often worn with a pendant. If you look at both of these pieces of jewelry, you can see how Tiffany would distill this idea into what would become the Return to Tiffany necklace, with its large toggle closure and fairly prominent pendant.